Hey guys, today I'm going to be planting everything that I intend to plant in this bed for the year, but I'm going to do this all in one go with you today. Especially I'll be traveling more this year. I just want to be able to plant everything in one go, walk away, and just come back and do the harvesting. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you more about using this technique, and then we'll be planting up these beautiful salad greens as well as the tubers that I harvested last week. After that, we'll be watering in with this eco-organic liquid fertilizer, which was sent to me by Dakota. They are the sponsor of today's video. This is a product made from food waste, processed on site to retain nutrients like the amino acids, vitamins and minerals, and even enzymes. All the good stuff. I'm really excited to try this out. The technique that I'll be using is inspired by something called lasagna planting. It is a technique that mainly used to plant flower bulbs. So you would plant them in different layers, starting with the deepest layer, which is the flowers that would bloom last, and then the middle layer blooms second, and the top layer blooms first, which is the early spring flowers. So using some technique similar to that, I'm going to be planting tubers on the bottom about 6 to 8 inches deep. I'm going to be using ube, which by the way is not a sweet potato. We call it like purple sweet potato, we call it like ube, which is not correct. But it is actually yam, like a true yam. But the growing habits is similar to sweet potatoes. That means they do like the heat, so I'm going to be planting them deeper and having them come up last in this bed. And then second thing I'll be planting would be these beautiful lettuces and purple bok choy, because these are more like spring vegetables, especially here in California with a mild winter. They would bolt very quickly, meaning the flowers would come up and the plant would get bitter, and then that's just, the plant would finish. So they have a pretty short life cycle in California. You can even, and I generally start things from seed indoor and then bring it outside when they get to like a pretty efficient size for transplanting. Due to the lack of light in this garden, having grow lights indoor really helps. This year, I've just been a lot more busy, so instead I just went and picked up these plant starts, and they were like about this size when I got it. I just kind of kept them fertilized. I think I watered it just once so far. I can't believe just like a week and a half it shot up like pretty much almost double the height, but you can see they are stretching a little bit because we've been having really gloomy days, and there's just a lot of shade in this like garden in the winter. Now I know that not everyone is growing yam or ube, so I think the substitute to that would be something like potatoes or sunchokes, because these would like the warm weather as well. They definitely don't take as much heat as like sweet potatoes or yam, but most places, especially in the US, I would say potatoes do well if you're planting them between February and early March, and then they would take about between 2 to 4 weeks to sprout, and takes about 3 to 4 months to complete its life cycle. So then you can harvest them in sometime around May or June. It depends on the variety that you're growing as well. So potatoes is a great alternative to yam, also sunchokes. But just a little warning about sunchokes, I would dedicate a space just for growing them. You can grow other things with it, but I wouldn't spread out sunchokes on every single bed because they can get invasive, some may say. If you want to control them, it's definitely best to plant them in a specific location. But yeah, these tuber vegetables would be great to plant a little bit deeper, especially with potatoes. So you can plant them as the bottom layer. And then with soil, make sure that you have good drainage. You don't want soil that would sit really wet and doesn't have good aeration. Your potatoes would tend to rot. Have it in a sunny bed and with good drainage in your soil, you're good to go. Those tubers would start sprouting once the soil warms up a little more, and it would take time to grow through the soil. So at this time, you can grow things on a surface level, which would be mainly, I would say, like leafy greens, like these lettuce ones, because they live for quite short compared to, tuber vegetables. So you can, I think at this time, starting them from seed in the bed may not be best, but if you have plant starts already, that are ready to go, you can plant them in. Lettuces, you can, pluck them as a whole head and harvest that way, or you can pick them leaf by leaf. It's just such a fast growing crop by the time you're done harvesting. those sprouts, from the potatoes or ube should be coming up and eventually taking over your bed. A lot of these salad greens, like your lettuce, romaines, bok choy, purple, or just the regular mustard greens, arugula even, things like that grow really fast. Even going from seed to harvest is it takes about 1 to 2 months. And the great thing about leafy greens is that you can harvest them as soon as there's little leaves. They're ready to eat at any point of their life. Since we had so much rain this year, I wasn't able to transplant these on time. So they're quite big now. Once I transplant them, they are pretty much ready to be harvested. But if I had something that are smaller to start planting, let's just say, if I want to harvest something that's faster, I can even put some microgreens on top, because those would be ready to eat in 1 to 2 weeks. And you're only eating, little sprouts, just like the baby plants, which is super nutritious. So really the thing about lasagna planting is to find plants that like growing in different seasons. That way you'll be able to build, the same space, but planting them in layers. The ube, like I said, likes the summer heat. These leafy greens likes the spring. So after removing or harvesting all these leafy greens, this bed is just going to be dedicated for the tubers to grow, which would take them all the way through winter. For us, it's going to be till middle of winter, and then I can pull them out. Recently, I added a deep root irrigation. It works on a drip system. It's going to help feed those ube and just encourage deeper root growth. This is completely optional. I just think it would help feeding the tubers better that way. So as you can see, I already have where I want the tubers to grow laid out. All I got to do now is to plant them in. But yeah, that's about it. Let's get to planting. I still have strawberries here I need to relocate, so ignore that. Here's one that I'm going to be planting out. Now, when it comes to planting ube, I actually have a more dedicated video about that, but just to show you guys, this one is more of a smaller tuber, so I'm just gonna plant it in and let it grow bigger this year. But other ones, I would just chop the other part to consume and then leaving the top part to plant. So this one is the larger one. I'm just gonna start planting. I'm basically just planting them a little deeper than the depth of the lettuces would grow. Got my hand in there, as you can see. The ube is planted on the bottom, so now I'm left with a blank canvas on the top to lay these veggies in. Now we're gonna plant. Okay, they are planted now. Okay, all my salad greens are done planting right now. They look so good. This is where I plant the ube. This lettuce is pretty much planted right on top of the ube. Next, I'm just gonna give them a good drench with a little bit of this liquid fertilizer. This bottle comes with instructions for different applications, such as doing a root drench during transplant or regular feeding, even diluting it to do a foliage spray. So today, since I just planted these up, I'm going to do a drench on here. I heard that it's even more effective to do more like a weekly watering, do once a week, but just 1 ounce per gallon of water. So this thing can really stretch if I'm just going with that dose. The nice thing about liquid fertilizers is that the plants would absorb it a lot faster than the slow release or granules. Liquid fertilizer is just so much easier to use, especially in my small garden, and I run water irrigation here. So when I use granules, the granules actually won't dissolve unless the water hits it, so you would have to sprinkle it all along the drip line. Otherwise, you would still have to hand water it sometimes just to get the fertilizers to work. But with water, water fertilizers, you can water it straight in, or you can even feed it through a system, and that would allow the fertilizer to drip all throughout the garden. Another thing with working with liquids is that I can actually fertilize. In fact, that is the only way I would fertilize my GreenStalk garden, unless I'm replenishing with fresh soil, once a year or something. I just think it's a super cool concept that they're using food waste to produce something that we can actually use to grow more food or whatever kind of plants you want. It's just, you know, keeping food waste off the landfill. Right now, I can either add some microgreens in. This is optional, but if you want to optimize your growing space, you can do that. These are my bag of seeds. Now to sow these microgreens, literally you can just spread it all along here with the seeds by hand, or just put them all in this little empty spice jar. Put this lid thing on, and then you just, if you like, you can even sow a lot more densely with more seeds. That would give you a bigger harvest. Water it in like this. I prefer the mist actually. Because these seeds were sowed on the surface level, you'd want to go in with watering daily just by hand to increase that moisture for germination. So anytime between 1 to 2 weeks, you should see microgreens ready for harvest. You can just simply snip them off to eat. I just used a small amount of space in this bed to grow microgreens just to show you guys how to do it. I normally would grow them indoor, so there's no need to, you know, grow even more microgreens out here, but I do want to show you the potential and how you can maximize your growing space. Now, if you don't want any more that would sprout up later on, you can just mulch heavily, like maybe 2 to 4 inches to smother them. That's it. As simple as that. So this plant nutrient is also called H2H, which means harvest to harvest. From someone else's harvest back to my garden, feeding me. To learn more about this product, I'll put a link down below for you. And thank you again to Dakota for sponsoring today's episode. I can't wait to give you guys some updates on how these salad greens are doing soon. Until then, I will see you in the next video. Bye.